Hello, everyone. Again, another episode today with amazing guest, Aly Madhavji, a huge name within blockchain community, investor, entrepreneur. Ali, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me here.
How are you today?
Doing fantastic. I'm here in sunny San Francisco and doing extremely well.
Nice, very nice, very nice. So, Ali, for people who actually don't know you yet, how would you characterize yourself?
Yeah, it's so I'm managing partner at Blockchain Founders Fund. We invest in emerging technology companies all around the world. We've got nearly 200 companies that we've invested in over about a decade. And one of the big things that drives us is really finding emerging technologies that we think are going to help change the world, make the world a better place, a more transparent place. We go and put our capital and our time into these companies to help make them successful. And I love for people to be able to understand what this technology can do and how it can make an impact. And so recently, I was fortunate enough to be part of a really exciting TV show called Crypto Nights, which
Yeah,
airs or which is aired on Amazon Prime, so you can check it out. It's with Adrian Grenier from Entourage, if you remember him, and Kim Lee from Bling Empire.
yeah,
And the show really tries to make it easier for people to understand these emerging technologies such as blockchain and crypto. So it's like a Shark Tank like show. So definitely check that out. But we've been doing work all around the world to help move forward technology that can help improve the lives of people all around the world.
wonderful. That's awesome. I think, like I said, it's a thing that it's needed. Not many people have that effort or that easy way of putting their foot forward, non-stopping. So I do appreciate that and all the effort you've been doing. So, but again, how this all started for you? Was it something that you wanted to do since the beginnings, since you were studying, since you were a child? How did all this started to you to where you got today?
It's a really good question. I think I always had that, entrepreneurial bug, and I still see myself more so as an entrepreneur than as an investor. And
Sure.
so, I grew up in my parents are refugees from East Africa, came with, only the clothes on their backs. And so,
Yeah.
from a very young age, I learned that, hey, you've got to go out and figure something out, make some money. And so I think by the time I was 18, I had about a dozen different, small businesses or different things that, could make money, not necessarily scalable technology companies, right? But, different things like building and selling computers all across, a part of our town,
Yeah.
uh, doing computer networking for people, helping people get the TV shows and movies that they loved and all sorts of other things. And so, this was, a good way to make money, had that entrepreneurial bug, kept doing different things like that. And, then once I went through university, got a really good foundation. So one of the big things for me was to go out and get a foundation, a good training ground for, financial, for accounting, for understanding how businesses work, primarily from a money perspective, effectively. And did that at PwC, moved into corporate turnarounds, helping companies basically laser focus on what's actually core and getting rid of kind of all the noise, right? So if your
Yeah.
company got 4 months of cash, 5 months of cash, what do you got to do to stay afloat? What do you got to cut and just become hyper lean, hyper focused? And so that was a really good piece of training. And then also got great training at INSEAD and at Tsinghua University, where I did my master's degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then went straight into the startup world. And after I exited that, then basically decided, and it didn't even start off really as becoming an investor. It was, hey, we exited the startup, the crypto exchange that we had started. This was back in 2017, and then it was, hey, well, instead of doing one company, let's support two companies. Instead of supporting two companies, became four companies became eight companies, and we put in
Yeah.
our own capital and roll up our sleeves. And that just continued to scale and be effective and, have high impact. And so, it just grew from there. And I think one of those things where, similar to being, an entrepreneur, for me, I see myself as an entrepreneur, but, you've got to have that passion. You've got to love what you're doing to be
Yeah,
able to spend 15, 17 hours a day with founders building and solving problems. And, I absolutely love it.
absolutely. So, I mean, in the end, you find there how to fill the gap that was needed to make successful change, right, end to end. So, and this is very, very significant, especially for people within a blockchain community or any other kind of business that need that interconnection. So, how do you think blockchain evolved during the last years, and how you think it will evolve within the future? I mean, you think you're going to be changed a lot? You think you're going to continue the way it is? What is your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing, two kind of main different things happening, right? So one, we've got this huge movement on stable coins, right?
Yeah,
And that has been, we're talking about 27 plus trillion dollars moved last year. That's more than, Visa, more than double of these actually. And so, you know, you've got this huge movement around stable coins. In reality, part of that is regulated and part of it's not, right? And what this really does though, that I think is very interesting, right, is it drops the, costs to send money home, right? So if you think about sub-Saharan Africa, it costs, 8, 9, 10% to send money home, right? Say you're
right,
sending a couple $100.
right.
Now you can do it for cents and, in a few seconds, right? And that is a huge, huge revolution that's happening right now. And what it does is it gives people the ability to choose, right? It gives people the ability to choose even at home. Do I continue to hold my local currency, which has high inflation, a lot of printing? Do I choose to hold stable coins, whether that's Tether, like USDC or others? Do I choose to hold Bitcoin or some other asset? But now you've got all of these choices that are actually much more effective now than ever before in human history. But this also, I think, changes something that people aren't talking about, which changes accountability in emerging markets. Because if a central bank, right, starts seeing a decrease in people holding their currency from their own population,
Yeah,
they've got to tighten up their act. They've got to do, something a lot better, or in 5 years, 10 years, that currency may collapse, right? Because
yeah.
you've got a massive decrease in demand from local population. So this is actually has changed even the
Not
competition
only
of
that,
holding.
not only that is
Yeah,
actually that the banks have a lot of bureaucracy getting borders internationally, and with blockchain and currency, cryptocurrency, it's in seconds. It doesn't matter where you are. So that kind of line that they need to work out, it's still far, very far, I would say, for them to get solved. While in within the crypto community, it's already there. So I think this is an asset for really. I just wanted to send the message, really, for governments to start thinking over and have regulated organisms around the world to start making crypto legalized, regulated. I would say, yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I think there's parts of it, right? So there's an unregulated world and there's a regulated world,
yeah,
right? With crypto.
yeah,
And we oftentimes in this industry don't like over regulation. There's oftentimes governments go too far. They're trying to make it too controlling. And, there's a lot of principles as part of these, currencies that are decentralized, that are meant to be decentralized, and it's power to the people. And so, I think we've got two worlds that are emerging. You see it with stable coins, but you see in other parts of the industry where, you've got this very regulated world. You see this in America right now. Over the last 2 years, it's been very strong. There's been
yeah,
a lot more clarity in terms of regulation in the US over the last couple of years, even if not all of it has passed House and Senate, or not all of it's been written up yet fully, or you've got Clarity Act that's still in progress. Despite that, the sentiment has changed on you're more protected doing, blockchain and crypto in America, or doing more innovation in America, whether that's AI, et cetera. And I think that has actually helped, to keep technologies moving back on shore, people building on shore in America. Then you've got this whole other side of unregulated, which I think has huge opportunities. You talk about, DeFi, you talk about, and you see the volumes there still, going up significantly. You think about, we talked about stable coins. You've got, all sorts of other, pieces here that I think create this unregulated side. You see prediction markets right now, which are regulated, but in reality, I think it's a gray zone.
Yeah.
And these types of things, I think, are actually good for also the unregulated markets to figure out themselves. Of course, we don't want people to get scammed, et cetera. But I think it actually creates more power back to the people by creating systems that are trustworthy, right? So when you have decentralized exchanges and you don't need to use centralized exchanges, can be very beneficial. It can also be, safer in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And so these aspects I think are very important for the industry, and you can't really regulate it away. Like, it's going to exist, no matter what happens. And I think that's actually a really good thing for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've been watching a lot of changes since it started, right? We say since the beginning of 2000s, the big uprise of crypto, banking systems and banking organisms came up to it, trying to confront it and stop it. Of course, they can't because it's already global. And they don't actually, I mean, or they see or they don't want to see it. That's the two things, which I think is the second one, because their system kind of like outdated. Because if you compare even the way transactions are made within crypto, it's actually safer than the actual banking transaction. You know, and the cryptography, the way it's done, the system, the way it's done, the contract, the way it's done. So, and it's much easier because you can do it all maybe in 5 minutes or less. You know, it depends the amount of transaction. If it's a huge transaction, it can take a bit longer, but because of paperwork or whatever. And this is the thing they need to work out, I think. But the main thing is, I mean, I was involved. I'm still involved a lot in crypto community. But what we saw is that we try to move forward, and there's a lot of political handicaps in between, and that's what's been struggling within crypto community. Would you, in your expert opinion, think that that will change in the future? I mean, what is your perspective regarding what it is, and the things that could change, and how easy it could be to change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's already changing, and I think where there's been some challenges in this industry has been building crypto or blockchain products for crypto or blockchain users, right? And that's, I think, a problem, because these things need to be very easy to use. They need to be open to everyone to use. You look at
Yeah,
what's happening with stable coins, you look at the adoption there, it's incredible, right? And it's changing lives, right? It allows people to put food on their table, allows people to send their kids to school because they've got more money saved effectively, from a much more efficient system. And this is actually a very big deal. And so, right now, where we've been more interested is this intersection of where you take blockchain and, say, crypto, and you go at the intersection of, say, AI, and you put those together, and we think you unlock exponential growth. And so, you've got all sorts of interesting things happening on the AI side, but really at the end of the day, the value layer, right, is going to be blockchain, right? And so you already see that quite clearly. You're even seeing, as an example, like with data, right? So take autonomous vehicles. You're going to need some sort of system that is immutable to show what happened, right? So when
yeah,
the CEO of a major Fortune 500 gets called into Congress or called in, and what happened, where's the records, right? Like, you're going to need to be able to show these effectively and make sure they weren't tampered with. And that's going to become, I believe, very clear regulation across the world, where they're going to want immutable. What happened here, it impacts people's lives, etc. And so it is very critical. And so I think there's a very clear place for blockchain and crypto as that immutable record, as that, currency or value layer, to be paired then with, say, AI in this case, or even IoT in the autonomous vehicle case.
Yeah.
And, that's where I think you unlock that exponential growth. And so this is where I see more of the use cases happening in the real world right now.
You've been involved for a long time now with AI and blockchain. The combination that you see its growth and the gaps that actually AI are filling in, do you actually think that will be deployed like a global deployment that everyone will starting to use the same way, or you think there's changes that should be made yet?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it definitely was hard to predict in the way that it's emerged, right? And, I could tell you going back to 2019 when we started investing at the intersection of AI and blockchain,
Yeah.
we got laughed out of the room on some of them, right? I mean, there was partners from some of the biggest firms in the world saying, how is AI gonna, work with blockchain? What's the point of it? How's it gonna like really do anything in this space? Like, and so it was very interesting. I have some very interesting emails and messages on this still that I think are probably comedic in hindsight when you look at it. But at the end of the day, you don't always know, right? And that's not a long time ago. It's 7 years, but a lot has changed in 7 years, right? And so when you look at it today, I think the big opportunity, right? Because it's hard to compete on, say, the LLM level, right? You're talking about billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions invested on the LLM level. But when you talk about, how do you go revolutionize supply chain with emerging technologies, which is like, say, AI and blockchain and IoT, huge opportunities, right? When you talk about how do you track pharmaceuticals to make sure that they're not tainted effectively, like blockchain's a great solution for that, right? When
Yeah.
you talk about, moving money cross border and actually impacting people's lives, like stable coins is the solution now, right? And so you've got these areas where you go downstream into an industry and you solve and really change that entire cost basis, right? And you're leveraging AI and blockchain for this. It can be very, very effective. Now, the challenge, I think, is that these technologies will likely, like when you talk about inefficiency creates jobs, it creates different opportunities. But when you go and really overhaul that cost base, it's it's going to end up replacing, I think, a fair bit of jobs related to that. And that's a challenge, I think, where governments are worried about. That's a challenge where obviously people are worried about.
Yeah.
And, hopefully there's things that, we can retrain, have people, use these technologies effectively in other ways to create opportunities. But this is definitely one of the risks that are coming out.
Absolutely. Yeah, would you actually think, just to continue this subject, would you actually think that in the end, people actually starting to reorganize themselves into looking them for new positions, or you think in the end this will stall and just continue in a different direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a different world now, right? Like, I think if you talk to young people today, I mean, I always, speak with a lot of young professionals, people have just recently graduated university or college, and I think most people tell you it's harder than ever to go into a firm, right? A lot of these firms aren't necessarily hiring as much right now.
Yeah.
But what I think is interesting is there's so many new opportunities being created because of this technology, right? So there's so many new startups, there's so many new things you can do to make money. And that I think, for the foreseeable future has created all sorts of new opportunities, new things to do, new ways to make money. There's so many problems that now that are possible to fix because of AI and blockchain. And so I think it's created a lot of opportunities right now, which is, I think, a really great thing. And it's a great generation right now. Of course, when you
Yeah.
look 10 years, 20 years, 30 years forward, how does that change? I think that's still to be seen.
Yeah.
But, uh, but I'd say it's a pretty exciting time right now.
Absolutely. And we're going back to the same direction, which is evolving. You need to evolve according to technologies. I think this is a proof, or this is a significant part that people should take a look at. And not only this, but I think it's in anything, because technology is evolving, things are changing. If you don't train yourself, if you don't update yourself and getting connected and involved with the actual technologies, in the end, the train passes by and you don't grab it. So that's the advice I also usually give to people. You know, you need to evolve. You need to see what's out there, how you can learn with it, and get onto the train. But don't leave the train. Don't let it leave, because in the end, it's very hard to get it again. So evolving, I think it's a priority right now, and it's been priority, I think, for the last 5 6 years. And I think governments should put more mechanisms to make this adaptively to reach out to everyone. Because in the end, to reach some positions, you need to have knowledge, and knowledge sometimes it's effortlessly, and you need to have financial capability to reach to that end point if you don't have that kind of knowledge. So I think the knowledge in the end is the root cause of everything, and I think should be there for everyone. I would say. So just moving a bit forward, what is your, within all your involvement within all the technologies? We talked about stable. What is your, in your vision? What is your next step within the future? And are you going to continue to do it all in the same direction you've been doing, or are you gonna diverse and change to go somewhere?
Yeah, so I mean, the direction is always forward, but there's always learning, there's always pivots. I mean, technologies change dramatically, right? So there's always aspects that change, right? Like we want to see companies leveraging AI effectively, and building much more lean. We want to see, what we used to see is probably these massive engineering teams. You might need 50, 60, 100 people. Now you can do the same thing with 7 people, 8 people, right?
Yeah,
So you're seeing that firsthand. It's generally more senior engineers that are sticking around and leveraging AI effectively, and you're seeing less of these junior engineers in some of these companies, right? Which is it is interesting. It is a big shift. Um, so we're really excited right now though about big opportunities in emerging markets for this technology. So you look at Latin America and the ability to solve the remittance problem, the credit problem. You look at sub-Saharan Africa, and we've got a company called Credit that's issued millions of loans already to people, helping to solve credit history for Africans, and helping them to build their credit score both in Africa and in America, right? And so like this is very, very impactful. It helps change a lot of people's lives. Then you've got all sorts of other incredible companies that are helping to move company or a capital from crypto to stable coins. So like bridges, for example, we've got payment rails, all sorts of payment rails in the portfolio. These are all very valuable and impactful. We've got tracking supply chain and solving tainted pharmaceutical problem, or solving supply chain issues. And so there's a lot of really exciting companies in the portfolio. We're continuing to look for outliers that we think can win in this type of market, this environment that's got an
yeah,
exciting opportunity. We're seeing more of those opportunities, I think, where you've got these older industries, right? So you've got these older industries, they haven't innovated for a long time. They've got a lot of costs that are sort of over decades, that you could come in and really overhaul the cost basis. These are hard problems to solve for a reason, but I think it creates huge opportunity. You take the media, like professional media industry as an example, and you've got companies either operating on WordPress, right, which is pretty old technology, or you've got companies building their own solutions internally. Imagine like professional media companies building their own technology solutions. Like that's not scalable, that's not effective, that's not going to win in this day and age. And so with one of our companies, Roundtable, where I'm CFO, and it's a company that we just listed on the NASDAQ. We're going in and working with these major media partners to really overhaul their entire cost basis, and they love it, right? It's like you could go save 60-70% of your costs and upgrade to a world-class technology is a win-win. And so,
Yeah.
it's these types of things that when you leverage blockchain, you leverage AI, you can really actually have a major, major impact on your business and unlock a ton of growth, right? And when you do that and you become lean and you focus on what matters, you can actually significantly scale revenues because you can be laser focused on what matters and you're getting rid of all of this noise, all of this extra that you don't necessarily need. So I think that's been very effective as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. Would you say that most companies are open to watch new technologies and get involved in blockchain, crypto, or it's because they not get the proper explanation, or the person who told them what it is didn't explain them, well? What is your kind of idea about this? Because I mean, it's evolving, but we see that not all companies are actually going with that in mind. That feels like it's not important for them, which is can be significant within their revenue. But is it because lack of information? Is it because the people that explain them did not do it the right job? Or what actually you think there is a gap? I mean, what is your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things, but you see this with AI as well, right? Like, oftentimes people think they're using AI effectively when they're prompting a couple of things, at
Yeah,
home or in their businesses, right? And
yeah,
there's so much more to that, right? Imagine every single day as a CEO, you come into work and you've got, here's the top 10 most impactful people, here's been the impact, here's the numbers, you've got here's the most important things from a finance perspective, from a marketing perspective, here's what's been, effective from a numbers perspective on marketing and how to optimize it and, where you should be investing. Right. There's so much you can be doing that we're not even scratching the surface in the vast majority of businesses. And it's because people don't like change, right? So whether it's AI or blockchain, it's really the same thought process for individuals. And it's just difficult to go through that change. And I think when you start seeing it packaged in these ways that are
yeah,
much easier to use, much, easier to plug in, that's where it makes a big difference, right? If you go to a CEO and you say, hey, I'm going to go do a 1 year integration of this technology, you're going to be like I don't want to spend the next year integrating this technology. There's too much risk on our existing revenues, too much risk on, everything else going on. But if you tell them, hey, we can go do it in 5 minutes or 1 hour or 1 day, it's like, okay, well, let's plug this in. Let's see how it works. You can already show me how it works with other customers in our industry or other
yeah,
examples. I can look at that. I see that it's valuable. I'll take the risk of if it's 5 hours, 1 day, I can see how it works. Then I can, leverage this for our business. So that's, I think, the big thing that's changing. It's the way that these things are packaged much more effectively. Like, even if you think about, AI several years ago to AI today, and, certain things being packaged much better, being able to use agents much more effectively for your business, and like, building loops effectively into your business
yeah,
so that it can actually solve a problem much, much better. Blockchain is also in a similar category, right? I mean, using some of this technology a decade ago, very difficult, right? Now a lot easier, and you're seeing that in real time in terms of demand when you look at adoption in sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria and Latin America and Brazil and Argentina. And so you're seeing this adoption because it's much easier, because the tools are much better now, because that whole experience is not going to take days or months or weeks, but it's actually, click of a button or very
yeah,
easy, right? And so
yeah.
this is, I think, what takes time in terms of technology evolving.
Yeah, I mean, since we've seen AI evolving, and since we can create models, you can create services models within the plug, and you can connect it to an engine and have full visibility of all going on in a company. People might not even realize. I mean, you can have people knew your IoT, but this is go far beyond. We're talking about making a full company totally automated over 95%. People, when I say this, well, it's not possible. It is. It is. It can be good or bad. It just depends how you build it. If you have the proper measure of security within, and it's proper monitored within the cybersecurity aspect also. But it's possible. And then this is what people don't see. There's a huge opportunity right now to have your spare time really on the business while being busy with things that you don't need to do it anymore. Actually, can do it automated mostly over 90%, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I think you can start to streamline so many things effectively by just putting in the information, and it can be very, very effective.
It is. It is. So, within what you doing, helping other companies, can you, let us know for people to know more about your company? How do you actually, evolve business with partners, companies, people? What do you actually do? A bit more in detail, and what is your plan within, the community to work with them?
Absolutely. I mean, we've looked at a lot of companies over the last decade. I've looked at about 20,000 companies over the last decade. And obviously, we can't help all of them, right? But, we selectively, find companies that we think are a good match for us to go put in capital into. And then we help roll up our sleeves. And a lot of these companies, we're helping to bring in, customers, partners. We're helping to bring in like service providers, even. We're helping to raise a lot of the capital or help bring in a lot of the capital from key partners that we co-invest with. And they'll help to come into these businesses and support these businesses as well. So, that's been a pleasure. And, we've had, I think, a strong impact on a lot of the companies that we've invested in. Having said that, one of the things that we recently built, and I'm happy to actually share it with your audience, and we can put it in the notes below, is we've been
Sure.
testing out. It's not fully finalized, but we're happy to release it to the market here to your audience. We've actually been building for about a decade. We've been giving feedback to companies, right? So this is on their pitch decks. How do you make sure that these are world class? How do you work on your pitch as well? So verbal, like your pitch. And so we actually talked to our founders about making sure you've got an 11, 30, and 90-second pitch, how to polish that up. And we actually built a tool now from all of those documents, all of those materials we've been training and giving feedback for a decade. We didn't know we were going to use it for this, but we ended up actually building a tool that I think is extremely effective on going through and giving you world-class feedback on improving this. And so we'll be able to share a link, and you'll be able to upload your pitch deck or upload your pitch, and you'll get feedback by email that's personalized for you on exactly what to improve. And we've used a lot of the top resources in the world in addition to our direct feedback to companies over the decade. And so I think that this will be actually very valuable for any founders or entrepreneurs listening to this. And how do you actually refine that pitch? How do you actually refine that approach? And so hopefully that's helpful, but it's something we can share here.
Amazing, amazing. So absolutely. Send me the link. I'll definitely share that within the description of this video when we publish. So, and what is your vision? I mean, what are you planning to continue doing, let's say, within the next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking to go out and back more incredible entrepreneurs, right? And help, change these different industries. If you look at what we're doing in, the professional media industry, and, bringing more, transparency, more freedom, and protections to journalists, I think is very important. But also all of those tools that they need to go out and build much more effective businesses, right? These are for professional media. And, I think that makes a big difference. And that's, one of our companies on NASDAQ. We've got credit out there that's actually helping, millions of Africans right now, and many Americans or Africans that are in America right now. And that's been, very, very helpful. And so we've got these founders all around the world that we've been backing that are making a big impact. And we're looking to continue to do more of that, right? So, if we can find founders that are going to help change the world, and
Yeah.
that makes it also a good business opportunity. That's exciting for us from that perspective, to go invest in, give them capital, but also spend time, help them solve some of those key challenges, and hopefully build a scalable business that's here for a long time. So that's been the objective, and we're continuing to double down on that.
What are the let's say the regions that you most focus on at the moment? Are you planning to expand more, or you have a preference within region?
Yeah, I mean, we've got so one of the things that, I think we did quite well is, we do have companies all around the world. So if we meet or find founders in regions that we think that they can win at, we're happy to go invest in it, which is why we've got about a dozen companies in Sub-Saharan Africa. We've got, a number of companies in Latin America. We do have the biggest chunk of our companies in North America. We've got a lot of companies in Europe and Asia as well, right? And we've got some in Australia as well. So, we do have companies all around the world. And it's really about meeting those founders that we think have what it takes to win in what is more and more a global business, but also that they can go win regionally when there's opportunities, right? So it's very difficult, for example, for an entrepreneur that's living in San Francisco to go build a solution that Nigerians or Sub-Saharan Africans are going to be using related to remittances and local payments and credit on the ground. And so, you need to actually have entrepreneurs that have that experience locally, that understand those systems, that understand those relationships and can build those relationships. And so that's very important in a lot of cases when you're building these startups around the world.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, you need to look at the market and the way it's been working, right? Because from country to country can be very different and very significant change. Also from the regulative point of view, because I mean, laws are different everywhere in the world. So what you do actually in some point in, for example, in US, you might not be able to do it in that same way in Africa. So it need to be changed. So this is again, the arm locally. It's always important for having information, but also that asset view within how the market actually works and what is its regulative laws in that area. So, catching on, are you planning to launch anything new, in the near future? Something that you can tell, or you cannot speak about it at the moment?
Can't fully speak about it at the moment, but our focus has been right now, to support many of our key companies. We've got a lot of major raises, in progress across different portfolio companies of ours. We did recently take Roundtable public as well on NASDAQ. So, this is the type of thing where we're now opening this up to, you know, basically the whole world to go look at and see what we're doing there as an example. And that's a really exciting, company. I think that's changing the entire professional media industry. And so these are kind of the bigger things that we've been focused on right now and we think is having a big impact. And so we want to continue to spend time on companies within the portfolio right now to help them scale, help them grow. We're still looking at new opportunities as well, from an investment perspective.
Wonderful. That's awesome. Um, for people out there that started like us, in the current market and the current situation around the world, and whatever they are actually doing, what you do tell them, you'd say, in your expert opinion, would be easier for them to continue to achieve their goal?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think you've got to go out and leverage technology, right? And figure out what is it that you're excited about, that you're passionate about. If you're going to go build a business around that, like you've got to have the passion, you've got to have the longevity in it, right? And you've got to wake up, every day excited to go do that. If you're going to go build a company, exciting
Absolutely.
now is actually you can use technology to solve a lot of the gaps that you might have had quite effectively. And so this is, where in the past you might need designers, you might need technology, and like all of these different things, you could actually solve a lot of it very quickly now with, AI. And you can build all sorts of things that you couldn't build even years ago. And so this is actually the big thing. And then, leveraging some of these things that we're going to share, for example, on how to make sure you've got the best pitch deck in the world, how to make sure you've got, your pitch, down really solid. We talk about some of these things that are periphery to the business, but you want to be the best in the world at those because you don't want that to be the reason that you don't get investors, you can't build your business or scale your business. And so, getting really good at those in a very short amount of time is not actually that difficult. You just need the right resources. So I think this will help quite a lot in terms of helping to get, listeners that are building companies to a world-class level. And then hopefully that helps to fuel the business, be able to raise capital and continue to scale.
Absolutely. Thanks for the info. I think that's very significant, of course, and every entrepreneur, it's a main goal to do that, because most of people, have to focus within the idea, what they are building, but then they miss out very important aspects, which is one, the presentation, and of course the financial aspect to get it presented and transform your idea into a financial proposal. So that's not easy to do, and most people miss that during the actual transition, right? So it's great work. Awesome, awesome. Looking forward to that. So, anything else you like to add, Ali, from your perspective, current markets, anything?
I mean, thank you so much for having me. Definitely reach out if you are building something exciting. You can share what you're working on with us at blockchainff.com. We'd love to hear what you're working on, see if it's something we can help with. You can also find myself or our team on LinkedIn or X or any other, social media. So we'd love to hear from you. Definitely reach out, and we're happy to see if we can help.
Awesome, awesome. So before we finish, I always ask my guests to say a power message. What will be your power message today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really figuring out what you can be the best at and where you can build something that's going to help impact people, create value for people, and also, help create an opportunity or value for you and your family. And I think that we've got technology that makes it easier than ever to do, but it also that makes it more competitive, right? Because other people can do it also easier than ever before, right? And so you really got to know and have that passion in an area that love and want to focus on, and can wake up every day, even when days are tough or not tough. And in startups, there's always things that are going wrong. There's always things that you've got to fix and improve and deal with as well. And so you've got to have that passion, that excitement to go build this. But it's probably the best time in human history to go out and build something. And the most effective way, or the easiest way to now go do it, is leveraging some of these emerging technologies. So it's a huge opportunity, I think, build out what you have kind of in your mind as that dream now more than ever.
I appreciate it. Ali, thank you so much for having the time joining us today. I think it was very significant. There's a lot of information. I think everyone would be appreciated. Again, thank you so much for having this conversation, and look forward to joining any of your ventures in the near future, anywhere in the world. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.